Right.
All right, I'll call this meeting to order. This is the regular June meeting of the Helena Citizens Council. It is June 25th, 2026, 5:30 p.m. Secretary Hammer, will you please call the roll?
Okay, sure. Lori Fitzgerald, here. I'm here, Diane Hammond. Joe Lehman,
Here.
Nancy Perry, here. Ann Hausrath, here. Jacob Miles,
Here.
Janet Zimmerman, Ben Kuiper,
Here.
Katie Ryan, here. Brian Schwackert.
Present online.
Thanks, Ryan. Dylan Kleppmeyer.
Here.
Bob Habeck.
Excuse me.
Kent Stevens.
Here.
And Richard Sloan.
New.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have quorum? All right, let the record show we have quorum. At this point, we would move into our meeting minutes. We do not have any minutes to approve at this point. So we'll move into member appointments, which we also have no member appointments this month, which leads us into our guest speakers. So I want to thank City Manager Helena Lake and Mayor Emily Dean for joining us today. We want to give you a few months to settle into your roles, and we would love to hear an update. And we have some questions for you, but I just want to turn the floor over to you. Start.
Well, good evening, everyone. I wouldn't say we're quite settled yet, but I would say well on our way. We have quite a bit going on. I think this has been, I was first elected to the commission in 2019, and then re-elected in 2023, and then obviously ran for mayor in 25. And I would say this first 6 months is like the most robust first 6 months of a term that I've had since being on the commission, which is good because it means that things are, moving at a good clip. And we've just had a lot going on. So I think most of you know, in November, we passed our land use plan. Zoning reforms are the next step of that. I actually had board meetings today with the Montana League of Cities and Towns. And at the beginning of that, all of the big 8 mayors and city managers will often get together. And we are only, I think, 1 of 3 municipalities in the entire state that is compliant with the Montana Land Use Plan as of now. So that is something we can all be proud of because it was a humongous lift. And it means that we're going to be ahead on the next conversation of zoning reforms, which I think HCC obviously is involved with. If you were listening to our commission meeting last night, we had another conversation about a public safety levy. So this, you all are very well aware, it was very much a challenging budget cycle. Our overall revenue was down 11%. That's pretty consistent across all the municipalities that I've talked to. For those that have transit districts, they didn't see quite as big of a drop, but everyone's feeling the same challenges. And so we're not alone in that, but we know that we have to, and the data is very clear, we do not have enough police officers and firefighters to meet the needs of our growing community. Part of the conversation we had last night was a conversation around the timing of putting a public safety levy on the ballot. For the last few months, I've been pretty gung-ho about November being ideal. And this is, the beauty of local government is that you get to get more information, and sometimes it will persuade you in a different way. And so the last few weeks I've been talking to a number of community members that I knew we would need on an outside committee to be promoting the public safety levy because you may not know this, state law does not allow city staff to advocate for the passage of a ballot issue. So like the public safety levy, our staff can only give information. They cannot say vote yes, which is why outside committees are really important so that they can help tell the public why you should say yes to investing in public safety. And it's something that we did not have when we went out for the fire station bond and the previous levy. We did not have an outside committee. We only had the education pieces internally. And I think that was a lesson learned that we needed to make some adjustments this time. When talking to various people in the community who have spent a lot of time and have a lot of experience in doing this type of thing, I was hearing a lot of conversation of this election cycle is just getting so, I don't want to say toxic, but rough, that we may not want the levy on the November ballot. And so we had that conversation last night. We'll have another meeting about it on the 15th. I think that we're probably going to end up being in March. So that means that we can have the next 6 months to really get our ducks in a row. We're not going to be competing for very expensive airtime. And then we can, press go in January and have 3 solid months of educating the public without the noise of the midterms and legislative races and everything else happening right now. So that is, be on the lookout. It's going to be really critical to, in my opinion, get that passed. We do not have the budget to support new FTE right now because of the limitations in state law. And the only option that law presents us to solve that issue is by going to the voters and asking for a levy. So that's what we're doing. And then we can be prepared for the demands of right now and the growth of the future. Trying to think what else. There's a lot that's coming up, but those are some of the very big things that I'm thinking about that I think HCC is probably interested in terms of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the NPO. We are in the middle of the long range transportation plan. The NPO had a meeting a couple weeks ago, and we kind of expanded the scope. The NPO expanded the scope of some of the transit evaluations that'll be included in the LRTP so that we can find other sustainable funding sources for transit. Some of you may have heard through the budget conversations that our transit budget had a pretty significant shortfall. That is pretty much entirely due to losses in funding from the state and federal government. So over the last 3 years, we've had about a 60% reduction in funds from the Montana Department of Transportation TransAid to transit, and about a 30% reduction this last year from the federal government for transit. And so that obviously presents some pretty challenging situations. And we are covering that shortfall this year from the general fund and cash reserves, but that is not going to be a sustainable solution into the future. Other cities address this in various ways through, Butte basically pays for their entire bus system through the grant and donations they get during the Folk Fest in one weekend. So the grant money they get in one weekend for transportation is what pays for their entire year, essentially, of transit. Missoula has a transit district. Bozeman has a transit authority. So separate, essentially pot of money that is not through the municipality. So those are some of the things that'll be coming up. And I think the LRTP draft is scheduled for the fall, and then likely going to the full NPO for adoption. I think that's around December. Don't quote me on it. It's basically in 9 to 12 months. So it might be next spring, depending on where things go. But I think we'll see a first draft this fall. I think that's kind of the big stuff. But there's obviously, we have a lot going on, which is very exciting. We've been approving a number of bids at the commission as of late for water, wastewater, streets, mill and overlay, ADA ramps. And it's always fun to actually see the construction projects start and the things that you've been planning for sometimes years, actually go to bid and shovels in the ground. So a lot of that going on. And with that, I will pass it to Helena. I'm not sure what else.
Luckily, the mayor covered everything. Sorry. So I get the easy job. No, it's an honor to be with you guys this evening. I really appreciate each and every one of you for the time that you volunteered to be active in this organization. I have to tell you, when I applied for this position, one of the things that I looked at in the charter was the HCC, and I was like, wow, this is an amazing idea to have an organization that is community driven, that gives some scrutiny to, you know, what our government's doing and gives good feedback and gives good advice. So I've had the fortune of meeting most of you and having some good discussions, I think, already. But it's so exciting to see the energy that you guys are bringing to actually want to be involved and be more involved and to improve our processes and see how we can be even more effective collaboratively. So that's really been a focus of mine coming into the seat, is really that community engagement piece. You know, community engagement is definitely a two-way street. So we are trying at the city to set up the mechanisms to enable that conversation to happen, and with the hope that the community will reciprocate and get involved as well. So some of the things we've been doing is trying to create additional avenues for input. So we've had some push for those of you that follow our social media. We've really made a concerted effort to try and put more information out there, because we know that that is, in our day and age, how people consume a lot of their information and get a lot of their news. So you should be seeing a lot more information being pushed out there. Of course, we have our Be Heard Helena page. We're trying to utilize that more robustly. In fact, I'd encourage you to go on there and take a look. There's a lot of surveys that are open, and with our different zoning projects and our community projects, parks projects now. Lots of ways to get involved there. We've also launched our community listening sessions. Those are monthly, and we've picked kind of a general topic for each one of those, things that we think are of high interest to the community. We've also tried to vary the location of those. We understand it's hard for people to kind of get out sometimes or find the county building or come to us. So we're trying to, you know, get to you. So we're trying to really leverage some of our local businesses and get out in the community and offer those opportunities. I think our next one is in July 17th. Does that sound right? Right now it's at the Civic Center. It'll be really a focus on our public safety. So our dispatchers, police and fire, to give a good snapshot of how those departments function, what they do for the city, some of the maybe limitations too. You know, the other aspect from my perspective, I've been in this position since January now, so about 6 months, but you know, just really getting out and talking to the community. You know, there are so many amazing individuals out here in the community, amazing organizations. We have some great people in positions of power in the government right now who are really excited about progress, and there's a lot of energy. And so, you know, what I've really garnered from that is we have a really special community where people actually care and they're engaged, which is, I've talked to a lot of my peers from across the state. Most governments, local governments, are clawing and fighting to try to get citizens engaged. And we don't seem to have that issue here. People are just excited to be involved and are not afraid to voice their opinion. So a lot of good things. One of the things we've partnered with the chamber on is really trying to highlight some of that goodness and the greatness that comes from our community with our Spirit of Helena Award. It's a monthly award to really highlight somebody in the community that's really going above and beyond and giving back to their community in different ways. And we had our first recipient last week, just amazing, Helen. She's over 100 years old now. She's been volunteering at St. Pete's for over 50 years. Just an incredible woman. She lived through World War II and I mean, just you have to spend some time with her if you get a chance to. It's just amazing. So so many great things happening in the community. You know, we do have a couple positions on our leadership team that we're hiring for right now. We just hired a new HR director who is amazing. We stole her from the state. Carol Ann, you'll meet her at some point. And then we have a fire chief position that's open. So we're conducting some interviews this week for those, and we'll have our finance director first look at beginning of July. So a lot of change, but good change happening. One of the things that's been interesting with the interview process is a lot of the candidates ask us questions. We give them opportunity to ask us questions, and a lot of times they ask us, you know, like, why do you like working here? Or why should I come work for this organization? And it's been a pretty easy answer for me. You know, I think sometimes local government gets a reputation of being hard to navigate, and, you know, the people in it aren't very hardworking, and they're just maybe in there, they're 9 to 5 and giving minimal effort. But I will tell you, overwhelmingly for our staff, we have an amazing staff that are just incredible to work with. And not to undermine or diminish, everyone has challenges, of course, and we're addressing things as we need to, but overwhelmingly, we just have really good people that want the best for the community and work hard, and they work overtime, and they are doing their best to do the jobs to the best of their ability. So it's stuff like that. It's fun to talk about, Helena. It's fun to hear all the good things that are happening, from our nonprofits to the collaborations that are happening on a public-private partnership level. And it's been really fun for me to just work and connect people towards some of those initiatives. So I think maybe a good example of that is we have piles and piles of these plans for our downtown Helena area about different visions people have had from a multimodal perspective or maybe a master planning perspective, but there hasn't been an effort to really bring everybody to the table. Your BID folks, your business owners, your Walking Mall Foundation, your chamber, your Visit Helena folks, and get everybody talking on the same sheet of music. And so that's something we're starting. Is we're going to start having meetings in July and bringing everybody to the table so that we can have a collaborative, collective effort to start tackling what do we want our downtown Helena to look like? What's the long-term plan? How do we connect funding sources to the projects that we want to prioritize? What's a realistic timeline? Who should be plugged in? Who should be responsible for which step? And so those are some of the exciting things that are happening. The mayor talked a lot about kind of our development process and our economic development in the community. We are working, Malupa has really jump-started a lot of the change process there, but we are working even in addition, above and beyond that process, to really streamline and take a hard look at our processes and the red tape that comes with it. And so we expect over the next year, those things will continue to be scrutinized, and there'll be plenty of opportunity for community engagement for those type of things as well. So lots going on. Other exciting stuff. We're finally looking at that Montana crossing, the railroad there, which has been 40 years and counting, needing to be addressed, probably more than that. But really trying to be diligent about following through on these projects, not just, planning, not just designing, but actually getting dirt moved and like making stuff happen. So those are the type of things we're focused on, but happy to answer questions if you guys have any, for sure.
So just to set some ground rules here, I want to prioritize this conversation in our action items today. So if we do kind of go deep into the time, we'll adjust our agenda accordingly. As for questions, I want to take a speakers list, and just so that we're not kind of firing off in an unorganized fashion, and then you can have follow up if you'd like. But we have 4 questions that the executive committee submitted that were given to them ahead of time that I wanted to address, and then we'll open up for general questions. So to get started here, our first submitted question was, how can we, the HCC, City Commission, and City Manager and staff work together to create a culture of yes in Helena?
I think we are, over the last couple of years, there has been a very conservative effort from the commission and staff this term came up probably, I know it was around like in the late 2000 teens of this idea of a culture of no. And when you sent that question, I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm trying to think, what have we said no to as of late? And I don't know, besides within the budget where we've had budgetary limitations, I think everyone is very energized to be solutions oriented. That doesn't necessarily mean that projects will look exactly like you want, a particular person wants them to look 100% of the time, and that's just not how local government works. We're constantly compromising. We had a whole conversation about that yesterday on the parks, comprehensive parks master plan, and that had to be scaled back because there was a compromise on the funding a couple years ago when we allocated it, and so it was not including all of the things that had been originally planned because some people, voted for less money for it, and so it was scaled back from 150,000 to 120,000. And so those are some of the things that I think it's the nature of government. The whole purpose is to find common ground to move forward. And that's okay. I don't get what I want more often than I can tell you. But I do think that we have, and I think that a lot of the stems from when we came together to develop our strategic plan in 2023. It was the first time that we'd ever had a full comprehensive conversation with an elected body and staff of what does it look like to have strategic priorities that we all agree on, and then align that to our budget. And so since then we've had, the first thing, we had this big sheet of, and Chief Petty talked about it yesterday, we had this big sheet of butcher block paper that was on his table, and we all drew stuff that we needed on there, and Chief Petty drew additional police officers walking downtown. I drew what will be the Montana Railroad overpass. And here we are, 3 years later, and we have a railroad crossing elimination grant, and engineering work is happening right now to allow us to build that overpass. And we are going out for a levy to get additional police officers, including community resource officers who will be specially trained in working with the community and with vulnerable populations, like two of the things that we just talked about a couple of years ago. Do I wish it all happened more quickly? Yes. But I do feel like, given our strategic plan, we are really moving in a positive direction. And I think there's lots of opportunity for everyone to be involved. I think, and we can talk about this more later, but I would love to see us have a process where the HCC can come in earlier with the budget, where we're really having some of those conversations around what priorities within our strategic plan as we're aligning to budget are the most important priorities, and how do we make those determinations, especially in a time where our budgets don't keep up with inflation. And so given those challenges, how can we be creative and solutions oriented in finding solutions?
No, it's a great question. I think what's important to note, to the mayor's point, is progress takes time. And so if there was anything I would ask is just for a little grace and patience as we work through this. I think you've heard from the mayor, and I share the same sentiment that, we do need to be responsive to the community, and our goal is to get to yes, or at least have, some good explanation and communication as to why it has to be no, if there's some reason why it has to be that way. At the same time, there is maybe a perception of a culture of no, and the mayor and I are working very hard to change that. And a lot of that comes through that buy-in from staff. The mayor talked about the strategic plan, getting that buy-in and getting us all on the same road to see that vision for the future and work towards it together. That comes a lot from positive reinforcement and really getting people motivated and bought into the process. And so where you can help with that is helping us do that. You know, it's not productive to be ultra critical of staff publicly, right? That's typically not a motivating factor to get something to change or behavior to change. We're really trying to cultivate a culture where we're a team and that we work together and that we're as strong as our weakest person. So but again, that transition takes time and we are working on it. We're not perfect. We never will be. But we are working towards a culture that really supports that mentality. So definitely appreciate, many of you have come to our meetings and been very complimentary of staff. That definitely helps. And I am always personally happy to hear the critiques. If you have them, please let me know. But doing it publicly in a public forum is not always as productive as we'd hope it would be. So but I think we overall definitely understand the sentiment of that question and are very much working towards.
And one thing I might just add, one of the things that the city has never been that great at is telling our story and telling a positive story. I think a lot of the time it's because people are just very busy doing their work. We are constantly understaffed. And so we don't spend time telling the story. And one example I give is the Twin Creek apartments that are above the Lithia dealership. The city helped contribute to those through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. They were built by Seth and Tyson O'Connell, who are Helena boys, but left and started this pretty amazing affordable housing development company and build affordable housing complexes all over the country. And I was talking to them after they opened, and they said that they were so proud of the project and that it was the fastest project that they had ever done anywhere in the country from start to finish of any of their projects. And I thought that is a pretty cool story to be able to tell, that like they come back to their hometown, local government, state government, federal government, all contribute to their financial stacking. Essentially, it takes a lot of different financial mechanisms to be able to do the affordable housing project. So that's what a lot of the time they spend. And then from the groundbreaking to having people in the door, it was the fastest project they'd ever done. And now there's 72 affordable units for this community that didn't exist, a couple of years prior. And so those are some of the stories that I think that we need to do a better job of telling. And I think sometimes, community development is not going to be, they're very humble. And so I think that there are opportunities like that where HCC can help tell some of these stories about this is, what local government the work of local government actually looks like.
All right, this is kind of in the same vein. So if you have anything to add, what are the best ways for us to collaborate to ensure that the community is meaningfully engaged and feels heard in the city and in city projects?
I think first thing, our listening sessions, I have been really excited about how well they've been going. Very grateful to Manager Lake when one of the first things she said was, let's start these listening sessions where people can come in, learn about a particular area of the city, and then ask questions and give feedback if they have it. And so if you can help spread the message, I think, about those, because they're an opportunity for people to, they don't have to go through as many steps to seek us out. And, if there's a topic they're particularly interested in, just, we have a list of what month is what topic, so they can go to those. And then I do think that probably as we start some of these zoning conversations, it is in the charter growth and budget are the areas that you all, that's your bread and butter. And so I think that's going to be a really critical area, especially as we continue the implementation of the land use plan. And as I said before, I do think there's a lot of opportunity. And Danae and I have had a number of conversations about this with Tim before and with Helena about how we can create a more robust system to get your feedback within the budget process.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I think we had a discussion with some of you in the room about what that might look like and what we're kind of proposing and maybe planning out for this next cycle is once final budget adoption happens in August, really getting some talking points together about what that budget contained, what it didn't contain, some of the challenges that we've had this year, some of the successes we've had this year, and providing something for you to bring out to your constituents and your districts to kind of start that conversation from the end of our budget cycle and help us start the new one. So there was some great feedback that we got recently about how, giving HCC recommendations at the end of a budget cycle is really too late. We agree. We think that's correct. And, maybe some opportunities for us to be more involved with the discussions too, so that we can provide some useful data or information that might help form even better recommendations in the future. So I know I will be trying to attend these meetings quarterly so that you have kind of a touch point. And as there's questions, I can take this back to the directors if we need to. But we will definitely be in close contact in the future about what that rollout will look like through this budget cycle. And we definitely appreciate the perspectives that you guys have because we're only 3 people sitting here, with everybody in the room. There's so many different perspectives that we can capture. And then if you guys are going out to your districts and getting the perspectives of your districts also, that just multiplies the impact. So we're really excited to start looking at some of those things. And like I said before, I think, people feeling seen and heard. We have public meetings for a reason. Those are forums for people to come be seen and heard. If they have any feedback on an issue, even if it's not on the agenda, every meeting we have public comment opportunity. And so it's a two-way street. Like we provide the opportunities for people to come, but we can't control if people come or not, unless they're educated and informed about how they can come share that feedback. So those are areas where HCC can be a huge help, just spreading the word. These are the opportunities that we have. And, these public meetings we have, they're the minimum standard, for public outreach. Everything we do on top of that is extra. And so, I think the city does a really good job already of going above and beyond what's required by law. But we're always open to ideas how we can do that better, more efficiently, help get the word out. So that's a big piece for this group, I think. So we definitely appreciate the help.
Actually, today had another mayor, and I won't say what city, that said, I think sometimes you overdo community engagement in Helena. And I was like, you have no idea.
It's a core value here. I
It
think.
is.
I think the levy, okay.
I'll get you on there. All right, this is more of a procedural question, but in the past, the HCC has served as voting members on city advisory boards. The HCC would like the city to allow interested and qualified HCC reps to again serve on advisory boards. Is this something you would consider?
I'll take that since that's
Sure, please.
So many of you know that we went through an entire advisory board bylaws process evaluation because every board had a different set of bylaws and different, norms and the rest. And that was starting to become, I guess I'll say, a little unwieldy and makes our city attorneys very nervous, which I completely understand. And so the way that Helena and every municipality, especially some of the larger ones, are going through similar conversations, we wanted to approach it through a perspective of how do we evaluate the relevance of boards on an ongoing basis, because sometimes a topic is of particular interest at one point, and then, 8 years later, it's less of interest. Or you have multiple boards that are doing duplicative work and covering similar topics, and that also creates some confusion. Bozeman, when they started going through the same process, they just eliminated all of their boards and created one super board. I don't necessarily think that was well advised. And I know they're now trying to figure out like how to unwind that, to find a more appropriate solution. When we went through that process, part of our conversation was, how do we ensure that advisory boards are getting recommendations to the commission that provide perspective of diverse parts of the community. And so when we did that, we said we wanted to ensure that those that were providing perspectives were only getting one bite at the apple, and that went for commissioners as well. So we also took commissioners off of all of those boards, because what we had found is oftentimes you'd have, some commissioners who would maybe be a lot more articulate advocates for a particular board that they were serving on. And it would be to, the detriment of another advisory board. And that's not what, we want, fairness and an opportunity to hear diverse perspectives that aren't necessarily influenced by elected officials who will get another opportunity when recommendations come to the commission to provide those perspectives. And so all of that was included in the resolution that we passed 2 years ago, 23, 3 years ago, wild. And so, from my perspective, I wouldn't necessarily be interested in revisiting that resolution, because I think that I want to ensure that, there's fairness in people getting one bite at the apple before things are coming to the commission, and commissioners also not having undue influence on recommendations that are then going to come to the body. So that is what my perspective was. Obviously, we are a commission of 5. But, that came after a number of conversations and discussions, not just with within the commission, but also our work with the local government center and the city attorney's office. I don't know if Danae was our coordinator of all of this. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, no, I think that pretty much summarizes it. There were discussions with this group. I think the HCC got a couple opportunities at the time to weigh in. The commission did deliberate about it at those meetings, discussed amongst themselves. I think the local government center offered some guidance and perspectives. I, as part of the overall boards project, have been in constant contact with other communities. The struggles that we have here in Helena with our advisory boards and committees are not unique to Helena. This is, every community of all sizes struggles both on one end to get people involved in certain areas, and also how best to facilitate the recommendations that come through from those groups. And so we've tried to be extremely thoughtful in that project on how to standardize and create consistent processes for all board members and boards and committees, regardless of, your role and scope, to have access to the commission. And that's been paramount to the overall project. And I think this was just one component of that discussion.
All right, at this time, I'll open it up for general questions. I'll be taking a speakers list, so please wait to be recognized. Dick Sloan, go ahead.
I think and it's just an example of the proposed levy. I understand the basis of it and the background of it. I think we all knew there was a lot of interest in that issue going way back. And I think the way it kind of hit most people, this is what they saw in the newspaper. And I received a lot of calls from my neighbor. What do you mean we're going to pay the battalion chief $200,000 a year? And I said, hey, wait a minute. That's not what he's getting paid. That's the cost to the city, for training and for benefits and for anything else. But it was unfortunate because that issue was still, I won't say in the front of people's mind, but it was in the back of people's mind, and it just kind of smacked them when they saw it in the paper. Whereas if it had come out in the city is looking at staffing, for fire department and police department, and there may be a proposal or a request over the next year or so. It kind of came out as a done deal. And I know I mentioned to a lot of people, thought, no, step back here.
Yeah.
They said, well, we're going to have a new fire hall and nobody's going to use it. I said, nobody's saying that. I mean, we've always wanted one north of the railroad track. We're going to have one north of the railroad track, and I guarantee it's going to get used. Our fire department's going to be using that day one. But so there was a lot of misconception, preconceived notions from a lot of people. And I appreciate your comment there that maybe looking at the timing is something we need to do. But I think it was a good example of something that got on the front page before it really should have been.
Well, and so it's interesting. I mean, both of these departments are the departments where it does absolutely cost the most to outfit those individuals. And so, we can't not acknowledge that, it's the cost of operating a fire department, a police department. One thing I will say is that this is one of those areas too where we for both of those departments in terms of I won't go too much into this, but they're both represented by unions. And so, for example, when we are negotiating union contracts, and I'm going to be careful about how I'm phrasing all this, so Helena can just take me if I'm
There's disagreement.
Yeah, when there's disagreement, because it's, their job to fiercely advocate for their members. And it's the management's job to, fiercely advocate for the entire city as an organization. And then when you get to an impasse in negotiations, you go to what's called arbitration. And in Montana, arbitration is final and binding. And so what the arbiter says is what goes. And that obviously presents sometimes difficult situations because you and Commissioner Logan always gives good history of this because he's been on both sides of the table of being the president of the fire union and the fire chief. So he's been on both sides of the negotiation, and fire and police cannot strike. So that is why arbitration is final and binding, and why sometimes you may be spending more than you had otherwise planned. But they're obviously the positions that are so critical to, no one else can provide fire and police. And they are general fund departments that you have to provide services no matter what. And I think our departments have done a really good job of providing more with less. We've essentially not hired an additional police full-time employee sworn officer in almost 20 years. Imagine how much Helena has changed in the last 20 years. And we have essentially not hired any additional sworn officers who are taking calls on a daily basis. We have about the same number of detectives as Belgrade. And we're, quite a bit larger than Belgrade. Belgrade's, I think, 14,000 people. So there is some significant need, and I think that you're right that there's a lot of opportunity to tell the story about why the need exists and maybe how we solve the problem.
And sometimes explaining it in pieces rather than, like I said, comes out on the front page of the paper. People say, "Wait a minute," and I get that it's not that new. Yeah.
Well, and I think go ahead.
So
Unfortunately, we can't control that.
I understand, and I've been there many times.
It's like HCC are important because, local news is, I'm very grateful for what we have, but it is not nearly as robust as it once was. And getting the word out on a lot of things can sometimes be very difficult.
And getting the record straight too.
Yes, yes.
Pieces
No
too.
one's perfect. The news isn't always getting exactly the facts right either. So there's the opportunity for some education. Yeah.
Okay, next, Katie Ryan.
I just have a follow-up on your boards. Did you build in on the boards like an annual review?
Yes. So we, within the process, we have annual reports to the commission. And then every 5 years reviewing the relevance of the board. And that's not to say it's like, prove why you should exist, but it's at least an opportunity to say, is this a board that is still of import to the community? Is it maybe, we've gone on to other things that are of greater interest. So in that resolution, every 5 years, each board will get a review. Right. Correct. Okay.
So that's just to round that out. We've gone through the next couple of boards are slated, and it's really a capacity thing out of the office right now. We haven't quite pulled those up, given the budget turnover at officials level, to pull up the next round of boards for review. But we've gone through and systematically reviewed with the commission, the boards, and the staff the resolution. If it exists, because that was part of the issue at the beginning of this project, was that some boards were identified had never been properly formed or created. So we review the existing creating document, have discussions with the commission and staff, talk about what's working and what's not, and then bring that resolution forward to the commission for review. And part of the template that we use as for all of these newly created boards are the 5-year review of that board. And the intent is truly to bring it forward to the commission and ask, not necessarily should we get rid of this board, but ask about the relevancy for its current cited scope and purpose. Because what was created by a board or by a commission 20 years ago may not actually meet the needs of the current body. And so the goal was to say, commission, are you comfortable with the scope, purpose, makeup, terms, all of those types of things on this board as it's written now? So status quo. Is it something that you'd like to refine the scope and purpose and modernize it, because that may be a proper move at that point? Or beg the question, what was created 20 years ago for one purpose may no longer be a priority or a need for the current commission. And so we would sunset that board through a process as well.
Galen Klotmeyer.
I was just kind of curious, what are some of the commission's priorities for both zoning and this public safety levy? Have you guys got what your priorities are?
So zoning is really driven by what's in the land use plan. So I think among some of those priorities really include and I will say, I think it's illustrated fairly well in that land use plan of how do we continue to facilitate growth while retaining the character of Helena. And so that will kind of give the direction of the zoning pieces. I can't really think of anything specific in terms of like what in my opinion, we should be taking on first, but the land use plan does, because the legislature wanted it to, like outline a pretty specific funnel from one to the other. So the land use plan was like the whole, not that zoning doesn't include community input or information gathering, but the bulk of that was directed to the land use plan development. And then what was your second question?
Oh, just if there are any priorities around the public safety. I didn't watch the meeting last night.
So yes, we did not talk about the tiers that have been presented. So staff have essentially presented what we're calling tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1 is the least expensive, lowest number of new personnel. Tier 3 is the highest, and even tier 3 for, I always go with like the $300,000 home because that's around where my home value is. That would be an additional $13 a month for if the tier 3 were to pass on the ballot. I don't know where the rest of the commission is going to fall. My thoughts up till now have been, I would like to see this public, my number one priority is getting it passed because it is absolutely necessary. But my second priority is let's not just like stop the bleeding. Let's actually plan for the future. So I don't want to have to go back to the voters in 5 years and say, hey, we need an additional levy. And we frequently run into that because, once you pass a levy, the value of it continues to diminish. So it's constrained by a section of law called Montana Code Annotated 1510-420. And it just loses value as soon as you adopt it. So your money goes, it doesn't go as far for as long. So I would really like for us to think about either tier 2 or tier 3, because I don't want to ask the voters 5 years from now for another levy, and that would really allow us to think about growth that we know is projected into the future. I think a really good example is for the fire department, for example, we did the master plan in 2022, and within that there were a bunch of calculations and statistics that were evaluated by people much smarter than me. And in the projected demand for service in 2031 is actually what we're experiencing in 2025. So we're that much farther ahead in terms of demand than we had originally projected. And I don't necessarily, I don't think anyone sees that slowing down either.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, Lori Fitzgerald.
Just kind of a follow-up question to the levy discussion. So why is it, because you said we hadn't hired anyone for 20 years in the police department,
Yep.
Perhaps. So why don't we keep up better? Or why has it become a crisis like that we're so far, that we have so many to do? How come it can't be a little more piecemeal?
So it's because our general fund, up until last year, our general fund was only allowed to grow by half the rate of inflation averaged over 3 years. And so that actually was not even enough for us to keep up with wage growth either. The local government center came out with a pretty, I was going to say neat, but it's just depressing, evaluation that since there was a bill that was passed in 2001 called the Big Bill, and that's what kind of like it was a big reform of property taxes essentially, and it created Montana Code Annotated 15-10-420. And within that, municipalities could get 100% of newly taxable values. We do have the DOR guy here, so if he wants to correct me on anything he can. But essentially because our general fund could only grow at half the rate of inflation averaged over 3 years, we were only able to keep up with some wage inflation. That doesn't mean adding new people. So like we couldn't add new FTEs. And every municipality is dealing with this. I mean, Kalispell ran a public safety levy last year. Great Falls ran one in 2023 that failed. I was talking to Bozeman today. They are likely going to be running one in the next year or so. Missoula ran one last year. And it's because it is the only option that's available to us in state law to add additional personnel. It's also why, for example, you'll rarely see us adding new FTE within the general fund. So, for example, like this budget cycle, I really want to see us get a community engagement position in the commission office, and advocated for that. And we just we don't have the funding available to add new FTE from the general fund. So that's really why. I would love to see the legislature do a carve out for public safety. So a carve out to that section of law so that we could actually adequately fund public safety. I don't know that they will necessarily do that, but I want to ask them. So, and that's something, I mean, it's a conversation we're constantly having with them. There was a bill that was passed this last session. It was in Senate Bill 117, that got rid of the half the rate of inflation average over 3 years and changed it to inflation capped at 4%, but we only get 75% of newly taxable values. And what we're seeing is it's basically a wash. As to compared before, I think this year our general fund tax revenue only grew by 1%.
Yeah.
1%. So I think some people thought that it would be like somewhat of a fix, and instead, because of that drop in newly taxable values, it's really just a wash.
And so,
To follow up on this, is Helena working with the League of Cities and Counties to lobby the legislature to try to fix this?
All the time.
And is this something that during the legislative session, we and HCC members can be kept apprised so that, now, we know that probably realistically, given the makeup of the legislature, that the Helena representatives are going to do the right thing, which is why it's really important to work with the other cities. But anyway, if you would let us know.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Yeah.
So there was an article that came out recently talking about local, state, and federal government growth, and it's actually from I think the Frontier Institute, and it sounds like there's going to be kind of a campaign to minimize growth of local governments or funding for local governments even further. One of the weaknesses that I saw just initially, I haven't had a chance to dive into it, is the data that they used was it from the legislative?
It was from Legislative Fiscal Division. And so what was interesting is, and it just came out this week, and it's going to be, I think, like a push of, your property taxes are too high and it's because of local government. It is not because of local government.
That's right.
We did not get any of that additional money. However, part of the issue is that the way the data is presented, it makes it look like our budgets have been growing enormously. We've just been really good and really aggressive at going out for grants to try to address some of the issues that we've seen. So like, for example, in some of the data, and this is another good example, some of the data they're presented shows the $7 million bond for the third fire station. What it doesn't show is the $7 million coming out in expenditures to build the fire station. So it looks like there's an additional $7 million that just is sitting there. That is not the case. It's going towards building this new fire station. The other piece of it is it also shows the when our CARES during COVID, CARES under the Trump administration and then ARPA under the Biden administration came to municipalities to help address the chaos of the pandemic and everything else that followed. We at the city were really, really careful to only spend that on one-time only expenditures, because we did not want to be in a situation where we were going to have to, fire people, cut services. So what the city did, I think you guys paid very close attention to all of that. A big chunk of our dollars, I think $14 million, went towards water and wastewater infrastructure upgrades. Prior to that money, so in like 2020, we had almost a $40 million water and wastewater deferred maintenance bill that needed to be addressed. So those ARPA dollars helped address $13 million of that, and then we paired it with some other grants. All of that money, they're trying to take the whole pot and say, you have all of this money that's just sitting there that, could be back in people's pockets. That is not the case. I also don't think that we should be penalizing local government for being creative and going out and being aggressive and finding grants to solve some of these issues, whether it's the Montana Avenue Rail Crossing Grant, which was $1.8 million, or the build grant that is building the infrastructure that will connect I-15 to Mountain View Meadows, which was like another $3 million. When those engineering are done, we'll go out for the actual implementation parts of those grants, which will be, Montana Avenue Rail Crossing is probably going to be $30 million. And that is why we want to be aggressive in going after those. And so I don't think local government should be penalized for that. And it's something that all the municipalities are talking about and will be, making a concerted effort to ensure that the public understands, how, all of this is very complicated. But it's not like we have pots of money just sitting around waiting for to be spent. We're fairly limited in how we can spend the funds that we have, and they can't grow much at all. So that is, yes, all the municipalities are going to be ready to talk about some of that.
Mr. Chair, just to follow up, this has been very helpful. I really thank you. And I think, to me, it really points up your idea. I personally, I think we have put on open houses in the past. It would be really great, as soon after the budget is finalized, to be able to have a public open house and have Helena probably or you, Mayor, both of you, explain this, right? So that people understand, because the more that we all understand, and just related to this, one of the things I've heard from people is to institute a wage tax. Because there's so many people, we saw from the land use plan, there's so many people who work in the city, use our services, and don't pay city taxes. So anyway, that's my plug.
Yes, there you go.
All right, I have Diana Hammer.
Okay. Thank you both for coming. We really appreciate your time. Going back to the advisory boards, I don't remember the rationale that was given for dissolving HOMAC, the Helena Open Lands Board. But I do remember the rationale that was given for dissolving NIMCAC, the non-motorized travel advisory committee. And that was that, well, it's redundant now because we have an NPO and there'll be a technical advisory, the TTAC, which Dick Sloan serves on as the citizen rep. But we went from having a dedicated advisory board focused on non-motorized transit that provided, I think, very thoughtful recommendations to the commission, to having, and no offense to you, Nick is a wonderful representative, but he's one person on the technical advisory committee to the NPO, which in no way is redundant with NIMCAC. And I would, I have a couple of things. I think we need NIMPAC or a NIMPAC-like board reconstituted, because this community, we love hiking, we love our trails, we love biking and hiking and walking around our community, and it's very hard for certain populations to get around and without a vehicle, and with an aging population too. So we have young families with strollers and kids trying to bike safely to school. How do they do that? I mean, I think NIMPAC or something like it could really help the city reestablish things like safe routes to schools. And then I have two more comments related to that. So that's my ask, I guess. Would you consider reestablishing something like that? And then there's, I know a number of current advisory boards have open seats. And I heard your comment, Mayor, about not being willing to open it back up to HCC, but I would hope that you might reconsider that, because I think many of us who did serve on those boards were active, involved board members, and those boards are advisory, just as the HCC is advisory. So we don't have a bite at any apple. We just advised the commission to take a bite at the apple. So I have that comment. And then the other comment, the interpretation of what is a quorum for advisory boards is very strange. The quorum, and because of the current city interpretation, which you have to have the majority of the seats in order to meet, not the majority of filled seats in order to establish a quorum, means effectively that a bunch of the advisory boards can't meet and haven't met for months. I know Lori and I both served on the conservation board, for example, and they just finally met in June, and they hadn't been able to meet for months because I think they have 5 members who have been appointed by the commission, but there are 9 seats. So unless every single one of them can make the meeting, they don't have a quorum. The normal way to interpret quorum, and the way we interpret it here at the HCC, is it's the simple majority of the filled seats. So that would be 3 of the 5, for example, on the conservation board, or for us, it's the majority of the filled. So I would ask, I have another ask, that the city reconsider its interpretation of what constitutes a quorum for advisory boards. And if you want, I mean, like us, the people who serve on those boards are there volunteering their time because they care, and they think a lot about this, and they can be very valuable to the city. So I would encourage the city to, at the city manager or at the commission level, reconsidering.
Well, and we do, I will say that's very much why advisory boards are one of the pieces that are the most helpful to me. I don't spend too much of my time in public meetings. I often am listening to the recordings of them. And why I think it's good that Helena did not follow the path of Bozeman and getting rid of all of them and just having one super. I will say on the quorum piece, I hear you. I do think, though, the reason that it's important is because I don't know that it would necessarily be appropriate if you only had, 4 seats filled and then 3 people would be passing, potential recommendations onto the commission with the full weight of, because advisory board recommendations come with a lot of weight to the commission. And I think sometimes people discount how much weight they do carry with us. And I think that that's where you have to be really careful. If, you know, only 3 people are providing that recommendation, is that really a representative view of our very diverse community? And so I guess that's like some of the considerations I have when you make a quorum, just a majority of the filled seats instead of what the full board is supposed to be.
And I'd add to that, boards and committees are completely separate from my side of the house, just to keep that independence and the independence of view, so they can have good advice for the commission. Yes. So,
Well, excuse me. Well, the city staff do provide
they do.
liaisons, so in that sense, your staff are involved.
They're involved, but it sits under the clerk's office, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh,
So yeah, so all of their recommendations should be policy in nature, not operational in nature, because they're an advisory board to the legislative branch, not the executive branch.
Right, so we're heading up on an hour and 10 minutes. I want to wrap this up in the next 10 minutes, but if there's anybody who hasn't had any questions yet who wants to put one forward, now would be the time. Right, Dick, did you? Oh, I'm sorry. Ken?
Well, I'm new here, so I'm gonna ask a naive question. Why are those boards that have so few people in it? It's all volunteer?
They're all volunteer boards, yeah. And I would say they ebb and flow. Sometimes you'll have, like, for example, the City County Parks Board. Holy smokes, when there's a vacancy on that, I get like 8 applications for one seat. And that's one of them that is very popular. Surprisingly, we often have vacancies on the boards that get to allocate money, which I never seem to quite understand. Because I think those are like, you know, that gets to do really cool stuff.
Everybody wants to be responsible.
Yeah. Another good example of a board that's always full pretty much is the Helena Public Arts Committee. Rarely is there a vacancy that is not filled fairly quickly on that, and I always get a lot of applications for those. So I think, you know, maybe just ebbs and flows with what people are interested in. We have been fairly aggressive in like making personal outreach, like as a full commission, to people. And I think, you know, we are living in a time where most of you can probably relate. We're all super busy and sometimes feel a little bit overwhelmed by how much there is to do and taking on one more thing. I was just talking to a gal that I was like, young, you're energetic, you're really interested in this, come be on this board. And she said, I would love to be. I just need some time to get my life together because I feel like there's too much on my plate right now. So I think that's, you know, some of it. And I do know, I mean, there's lots of, in terms of like retired people in Helena, we do have lots of snowbirds. So I think that also sometimes, you know, we'll weigh into those decisions. But please, you know, if you have folks in the community that are interested in some of these topics, send them our way.
Right. Just one final comment from me. So all of us have different roles defined in the charter, and so the roles are defined, but the procedural operations are not always. So one thing that I do want to commend is your willingness to come together and kind of figure out those wrinkles in the system to make sure that everyone's voice is heard and we're functioning properly within our roles. That said, there's still some work to do, and if we continue to collaborate in the future, my most important goal personally is to make sure that the process is evened out so that it can withstand turnover of all different officers. And I think that can be established through trial and error. So if we do have some hiccups, it's nothing like we're trying to be combative or anything. We're just trying to figure out exactly how we all fit together in this role. So I do want to thank you for coming tonight, and we do have some action items that we'll be discussing. So feel free to stick around, or you can
just take 2 seconds. Sorry, I want you guys to count to me. I did want to introduce Alex. Alex, if you could wave. Alex is the brand new face to our office. He's been basically drinking from a fire hose for the past few weeks. And I think today, I don't remember what you said when we were going through the record stuff. What did you say? Your head was spinning or something like that?
Half of that was going over my head, so I was trying to catch the pieces I could.
Yeah. So Alex will be your support, your staff liaison. Tonight is his first effort at setting all these pieces up. We'll be sending out an email to kind of highlight the different procedures that we're trying to establish to make us all more efficient. One of the things I mentioned to Diana on an email today is we'd like you, whenever communicating with the office, to use the general HCC inbox and the presiding officer inbox, which Ben actually has access to. The reason for that is because the entire office staff and the commission has access to those inboxes. Like Jennifer's been out really sick this entire week, so anything that's coming to her, unless I'm CC'd on it, I'm not seeing it. And that way we can pick up the slack. We are a small office, so if one or two people are out or I'm at meetings all day and I'm getting an email, they may not see it, especially if it's a matter of urgency for your meeting that evening. So we're still testing a lot of things. One of the things we did set up tonight, we'd like to continue using for Ben's sake, is we want to set up that laptop for you to be able to actually screen share and facilitate things. Unfortunately, because of cost, you don't get an official like Microsoft license or anything. So we would have to get creative if there's interest in doing anything beyond just screen sharing. And we can talk about those different types of procedures. But I just want to mention we are, to Ben's point, talking and trying to figure out the best way to collaborate and give you guys the support that you need, while still being mindful that we are a very small staff. We're in charge. Yeah, small but mighty. That's the way I always say it. We are in charge in the commission office of a lot of stuff, and every day is a new adventure. And so we're open to ideas. I just would ask for the same grace that was mentioned earlier, trying to figure out the best way to move forward. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know, maybe I'm gonna start asking to clap after every meeting. I'm never get that.
What is
Yeah.
yes, the email ID today?
Oh, sorry, what is the presiding officer email? What is?
That's actually for Ben. So if ever there's a glitch with the Zoom account, he has access to that email, and then that way we can email that.
What does that go to?
Yeah, the presiding officer.
Of the HCC.
Yes. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. So I don't understand, when we communicate with the clerk's office.
Yep.
What email are we supposed to use?
We'll send it out in an email so you guys have it. I sent it back to Diana today and make sure that we're providing you guys with all the full information. I wanted to introduce the topic tonight without
Okay.
blindsiding you.
Okay.
It's probably a city email. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
sorry, it's a Helena MT. It's the same handle that we use for all our emails. And I'll send them in the form of an email to the entire group.
And that's what you copy. You copy
Yeah.
those when you
Yep.
send out the agenda.
To be honest, I wasn't aware I had access to it, but we'll talk about that.
So you will let us know how we're supposed to communicate
Yeah,
with
Jen
your
had a
office.
whole email drafted and kind of ready to go, and then she got sick, so we're a little behind the eight ball. But we'll make sure that you guys have the email, and it kind of explains the whole thought process behind it. But essentially, that way we all have access to anything coming in from you guys, and that way nothing gets dropped. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you there.
See you later.
Are you good? I think Alex is gonna head next door and work on a couple of projects, but he's monitoring the meeting from the other room. So if you guys need anything, just holler at him and he can hear you. Just next door.
Yeah, I told Chair Kuiper for the first couple of meetings you guys have, just because I'm still learning a lot and I'm doing a lot of trainings. I'll be listening in on the Zoom, so if there's any problems, I can just step out real quick. But I do have to do work at that desk, so I won't be in here for the first few months. But I'm setting up. I'll be here to the end, so I can help print everything off and collect all the technology and all that.
Super, thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you
Right.
all.
Just to check this box for the record, is there any public comment on anything outside the agenda? There's no public in the room and there's no public online. Moving on. Unless there is objection mainly from the officers, I'd like to move the action items above officer reports. Is that okay with you? Okay. Is there any objection from the body?
We're gonna have a break.
We have 40 minutes left in our scheduled time. If you'd like to go, you can step out. Okay. So first we will consider action item A, consider expense allocation for block party cost, and that is in-house rest. So I'll turn the table over to you.
This, our fiscal year ends on the 30th of June. I was a HCC liaison to a public health initiated block party grant program. There were 21 applications, 3 grants were issued. That means 18 people presented applications. I was on the scoring committee. Many of the people who didn't get a grant were really, really well qualified. I asked that the health department, Elizabeth Park Health Department, give out my email in case any of the people who were rejected but wanted to go ahead and have a party if they wanted any mentoring, any help, anything. What I'm requesting of you all, I have heard nothing. The 30th is next week, but I'm requesting that if I were to hear between now and the 30th, that we be able to allocate some of the unspent HCC funds to helping them out, to be divvied up to anyone who asks. And right now, quite frankly, I'm not anticipating anybody's going to reach out to me. The letter went out about a week ago. But if they did, since we have money, that's my request. And have I made myself clear?
Yeah, sure.
Dylan?
Thanks, appreciate your work on that. I was just curious, does anyone know what our projected surplus is gonna be?
Yes, we have lots. Currently we have 1,599 that we haven't spent out of our 2,340 for the year, but we have 350 that is designated for outreach for all the different districts divided up, and 210 for insurance for a block party. So I mean, of any of that, we could, in my opinion, go towards this if there was someone that was interested.
Does anyone know if we get to carry a percentage of that forward, like 80% or something?
That came out, I don't know. I need to ask.
I don't think we've been able to do that in the past. I
No,
think
I think in the past we weren't.
Yeah, I wasn't aware, but I will find out.
That's it. Are there further questions for Anne? And is there a specific amount that you wanted to move tonight?
Yeah, I think it would be very reasonable if we have, I think only one district has spent their $50. So that would be 6 times $300. I think that'd be very reasonable if we got it, to divvy up at least some of that and I guess what I would do is ask them, what are you expecting to do? How much do you think it would cost? Not just hand them $300, but be able to reimburse them if we can work out the finance. So up to $300. I wouldn't be in favor of giving $300 if it's just one person who comes forward. I'd say realistically 50 per party.
Yeah, and to clarify, the only eligible applicants are those that have already submitted.
Exactly. They would be the people who, and not all of these were in the city of Helena, so it's not really 18, it's maybe 14. And as I say, I haven't heard from any of them. I don't necessarily anticipate it, but I thought, boy, since our money hasn't been spent and it was specifically allocated to neighborliness, I'd like to be able to offer it. And so I guess I'm asking for up to $50 per applicant, to not to exceed 300.
One more. I guess a request I would have, just for transparency purposes or whatever, is if the executive committee as a whole could just look at those and vet them, so it's not just one person deciding where they're goes. I don't know.
Well, as I say, a scoring committee has already scored all the applicants. Every application has already been reviewed by 5 or 6 people, including me. The others were in the health department and with Ability Montana. So are you wanting, I'm asking for a maximum of $50 to give to somebody to buy paper plates, paper cups, and some lemonade. And that pretty much shoots $50, right? You know, with the.
I guess
maybe
if
some
the
chips.
city's already reviewed them and said that they would be eligible entities, they just didn't have enough time. Fine with it, I just want it to look all above for us.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah.
We would look at it.
So I'd be
think,
glad to, again, I don't anticipate this, but certainly if I get any communication, then I would ask the executive committee to look over what we're offering. Makes sense.
I don't have any speakers. Would you like to make that motion, Dan?
Sure. I asked her, I move that I be authorized to offer up to $50 per block party proposal, if we get any before the 30th of June. With the proviso up to $300 total, that would be 6, I think it's highly unlikely. And that any applicant, any person being offered the $50, would be, their application would be reviewed by the executive committee.
Is
And
there,
this would be done electronically, given the 30th of June is next Tuesday.
is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, moved by Houserath, seconded by Lehman. To clarify the motion, this is a motion to allocate up to $50 per block party proposal before June 30th, not exceeding $300. Is that accurate? Okay.
From do we need to say from the list of, I don't know what the list is.
From the list of applicants submitted to Lewis and Clark Health Department.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Is there any public comment? Let the record show there is no public online or in the room. All those in favor?
I
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thanks.
Next, we will consider item B, consider expense allocation for outreach expenses, and that is Diana Hammer.
So I had a graphic for you, which is is the PowerPoint, which we can't show. I forgot it was PDF. Can we pull it up on there? We can show it on there. We just can't fully share it. And I keep forgetting that you can only do PDFs. So, as Lori mentioned, we have almost $1,600. And I would like to offer that we spend that money on like durable outreach materials. One suggestion was to have actual magnetic badges that we wear rather than lanyards. Peggy made us lanyards, but so Staples actually sells a magnetic name tag that's got a plastic thing that you could slip in a printed label. And I think that's actually a better use because those could be reused. And as there's turnover, we have new people come and go on HCC. And so for around $200, we could get 100 of those name tags, and then the filler, the laser printer paper to print Joe and Dick and Nancy on there. And we could switch them out if needed. And if somebody lost theirs, it wouldn't be a big deal. So I would, that's one thing I was suggesting. I also erred on the side of maybe no one coming in for the money that we just voted to approve it. So in case no one comes forward, another idea was to, I'm sorry, you can't see these. Well, remember the yard signs that we probably all have? I took that same logo, and that's why I was communicating with Danae, because I wanted to make sure I had a really good high resolution image. So I mocked up, we had the artwork at Alpha Graphics downtown, and they could do another 30 yard signs using the exact same artwork for, let me see, that was 500. No, sorry, $700. $700 for 30 more yard signs. It's a color double-sided, that plastic core board with the H stake. So it's the exact same thing. So so the badges and the yard signs together are about $925. And erring on the side of having no one come forward, we could also order 2 banners, like when we have a table, like at the art walk. One is 1.5 by 3, which should fit on the small table, or one is 2 feet by 6 on a larger table, and that would spend down the money. So we would be within $2 of the 1,500 minus what Lori's going to talk about. So we had $1,113. So the total of what I've all just described is 1,111 with some cents. So that's what I would suggest we do. And so I would move to for HCC to purchase and order these outreach materials in full, unless someone has come forward for the 300 or some amount less than that for the from the health. I'm sorry, I wish I'd written this down. From the health department applicant. So minus, maybe it's only 800 that we spend if $300 is spent there. So, but up to 1,100.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just a question. How many yard signs again were you?
30.
30. So right now, how many people already have one? So I guess, and I don't want one. So just, that seems like a lot. I guess what I'd like to do, because we're operating up till the 30th, to allow you to order some, but still allow for what I've asked for. Okay.
Yeah, the order just would need to be placed, I believe, on the 30th. I think.
Okay.
That right?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like but it has to go through the whole process to get approved before we could get the order in. They'd have to do.
Oh, it's a process for approval.
Approval by,
Because it has to go through,
Okay.
like, it has to be submitted to the clerk's office to be properly processed documents.
Oh, okay. So it's not enough.
Theoretically, if you had an invoice by the 30th, though, if the invoice or the bill was dated to the 30th,
Yes,
they
I'm
should
just
be
talking
able
about.
to figure out a way if they want to make it work.
Does that still involve the clerk's office? The invoice? I mean,
No, I think we would get it, then they would pay it. So I think if it's all ready to go by the 30th, we could order that.
okay.
Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying, Dylan?
I don't know.
I don't know what the process is for getting stuff approved. I just meant like if we had a bill from Ultimate Ultra Graphics that showed it was purchased on June 30th.
So when we ordered these before, the clerk's office and Peggy handled all that. So I don't know. I just gave her the materials and she made it happen. So I don't know.
Actually, Alex did. So.
Oh, was it Alex? Oh.
Okay, so,
I think we can get it done by the 30th. Let's just say.
Okay.
Let's not worry about that.
we have a motion on the floor to order
Before
outreach
we-
materials.
Before we motion, can I ask her a question about these banners?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time imagining what this is going to look like. What is a banner? How is a banner different from a tablecloth?
The banners they're kind of like vinyl with grommets.
That you hang up somewhere?
Whether you could hang it from the front of the, you could
Okay.
hang it up above the table, you could hang it on the table, and yeah, you see them like at farmers markets or other.
Okay.
So it's a vinyl material. Grommets. Yeah, any other questions?
I had one question. Do you think we should do less yard signs if most people have them and some people don't want them? I mean, I don't know. Or are we just trying to?
I was trying to spend the money because
Okay.
they're nice. I think they're nice yard signs and we could use them in the future.
well, they can be used in the
They'll keep.
future.
That's what.
Yeah, they'll keep.
Then we'll store them, but yes, they'll.
They'll keep.
That was my thought, but,
Okay.
if people, and that's the quote I got. I didn't ask for more or less, but presumably there's an economy of scale, I think, We only order 10, it's probably more expensive than if we ordered 20, but
Yeah.
I don't know where that breaks.
All right, further discussion or questions?
What do you attach the magnetic?
Oh, so Right, so it's you have the badge on the front that has a little magnet, and then you put the back of the magnet on your gun. So it doesn't poke a hole in your shirt or your scarf or anything.
Very nice, yeah.
They're very nice. And yeah, I was just looking for something that was reusable, not too expensive.
Yeah. Also, what is on the signs? What message is on the signs?
It's, oh, right, you're new.
Right.
It says, Helena Citizens Council, HCC, we are your voice with the big QR code. And then it says, help make Helena a community for everybody. It's a kind of a green and blue. We did them last.
It's an outreach for like membership.
Yeah, I have one in my yard just to say that.
So that your neighborhood knows that you're a HCC person.
And we can get you one.
Yeah, just you say, we must, don't we still have some?
I think they probably are.
Okay, I'm gonna write this in a little bit. Is there any further discussion or questions? Okay, the motion I have is order outreach materials up to $1,100 minus any funds allocated to the block party motion.
It was a little over 1,100. Could we just say 1150 just to make sure I put all the right dollars?
All right, $1,150. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion before we go? Is there any public comment? There's still no public in the room or online. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, action item C, consider expense allocation for water bill insert, and that is
Okay,
what?
so also in our budget from FY26, we have a water bill insert line item of $560. That's about usually what it costs. And as you heard tonight, they would like to get us involved in the budget sooner. And if you've seen these listening sessions, there was supposed to be a budgetary listening session on the 16th. They're worried that they won't be able to do that because of the loss of Director Danielson, the financial director. But we have encouraged Manager Lake to continue with this plan and do that. But we want to do it as a open house,
right,
listening session, whatever they want to call it, so we can get more people. And then what we could do is use the water bill insert funds that we have to add, which is what we often do.
All right, any questions or comments for Lori?
Dick, you look
What
confused.
Yeah, I don't quite understand what you're saying.
So we would like to have either as a listening session or as a HCC open house on the budget. So having city staff present to a group on the budget, get feedback, ask questions, and we would put on that activity and we would advertise it the month before, like in August, in a water bill that goes to everybody. And it says, come to this open house. We're going to discuss the budget.
And when you say discuss the budget, though, they're going to present the current budget,
no,
the status of the current budget, because see the budget. If you look at the approved budget, which will happen in the next month, and then you look at the modified budget, there are invariably a lot of differences.
The one that gets finally approved in September. Is that what you're talking?
Well, they have the approved one, but then there's
preliminary
budget modifications that start almost immediately.
Sure.
And somehow we need to be tracking those modifications.
Yeah. But this particular thing would be for the FY27, the upcoming budget process,
yeah,
so that we could get people's feedback. So we're not presenting right at the last minute. We would present like in January.
Right, yeah. But if you look at the budget presentations, they always show, here's the approved 2025 budget, here's the final 2025 budget, and then here's the proposed 2026 budget. And there's always a big difference between the approved budget and the final budget.
Yeah,
Dick, the outreach committee had put a proposal out quite a long time ago that asking them, the finance director now would be the city manager, to do a sort of budgeting for dummies. It would be much overall, like, here's our income, here are our expenditures, here are the limitations on it. So it's not specifics. It's more, how does the city budget work is what we're proposing. So that's what Lori is asking for money to because we have to pay to get something into the water, to be included with the water bill.
Yeah.
I guess I'd just like to clarify, all we're asking here, I believe, is for approval to spend money for a water bill insert of $560. What we put on it.
Thank you.
Okay, no, that's a good point, okay.
Got way into it.
Okay, I get you.
It's true.
Right, is there any further discussion or questions on this item? Okay, can you make the motion?
I would move that we approve $560 out of our current budget to have a water bill insert at some point.
Oh, okay, sorry. I didn't understand.
Probably this summer.
Second.
Okay.
I mean, that was my goal with what the water bill insert was for.
Good.
We'll do it something.
And we need to discuss what's going to be in the uncertain.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's been moved by Fitzgerald, seconded by Houserath, $560 to fund a water bill insert. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, is there any public comment? There is still no public online or in the room. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, action item D, consider a recommendation regarding a public safety service levy. So this is a recommendation that I authored regarding the police and fire understaffing that we're experiencing. The mayor and the city manager talked about it a little bit during their discussion. I did reference the staff proposal in our email. Hopefully you were able to look at that. One thing that I wanted to pull up here is the current tiers that they're proposing. The action clause in our recommendation is the therefore clause. It's the last paragraph. And I wanted to denote that we, as it is currently drafted, are not taking a stance on which tier for them to fund. We are only asking that they bring it forward to the voters. That said, there is an opportunity on the floor, if any of you would like to move a certain tier, to move a certain timeline, or to move a certain levy amount. I figured that it would be simplest if we just left that to the commissioners, but I know that that is something that could be interest of the body. So I wanted to throw that out there.
Can we talk about the whereases?
Yeah.
Because the whereases, that's one of the problems when this levy first came out, is they really didn't think through. And there's a number of things in here, for example, is that you're concerned about the new fire station is at risk of sitting empty. Let's be realistic. We're going to build a $7 million fire station. It's going to be north of the railroad tracks, which we need. And we say that may sit empty unless we hire more. That's not going to happen. I mean, personnel are going to be assigned to that fire station the day it opens. So we're being a little bit disingenuous here, where we say it's going to be at risk of remaining empty. And we say current staffing shortages prohibit employees from easily accessing accrued leave and oftentimes requires mandatory overtime. Now, is that a fact? We don't know, looking at personal record. So we're putting a lot of things in here. And we even say, for example, whereas additional HPPD staff will allow officers to better combat internet crimes against children. I'll be real frank here. that's something parents need to be doing, not the police department. So I have a problem with the tone here because we're making statements that we really can't back up. And
Sure. To address that,
that's all I got to say.
yeah, to address that, any of these whereas clauses, the body can move to amend or strike them as they please. The clauses that I drafted were based off of this staff levy presentation. And they did mention, to be honest, I don't know if they said it's at risk of sitting empty. They had concerns of staffing it at their current levels. All three of the stations. I don't know how they would propose to allocate staff if they had no staff levy pass and they still had to staff all three of those. I don't know how they would accomplish that. Second, the phrase about crimes against children is part of the proposal for the additional FTE at the police station, and those are specifically stated to fund detective positions that would go after predators, children that have online crimes like that. And then the second one that you brought up, the leave issues, since the police and fire they have to be on duty at all times. When you get accrued leave and there is not enough people to fill those required spots and your leave maximizes, you lose it. And that's part of the issues that the staff brought up, is that the current police and fire employees are reaching the maximum of their accrued leave. They're not able to take it sometimes, so they lose it. And that's the spirit of where these whereas clauses came from. If you don't like the wording, you can move to strike them or amend them as you wish. Okay, I'll start a speakers list now. Anne?
Since we heard from the mayor that they're now looking at March rather than November, I guess I would suggest that we table this because we don't know what else the commission is going to be saying, it seems premature to be doing this now.
Dylan?
Yeah,
I agree.
back, I guess, most things. I do support this. I think it's good we're weighing in on this. When the timing we choose to do it, I don't know if it matters too much. I mean, yes, if they do push it back to March, they're still going to be taking those votes in the fall and engaging, like they're going to be engaging in this conversation continuously, regardless whether it's November or March. I would say if the group felt strongly about it, that paragraph that says, whereas the fire station has a risk of sitting empty, that paragraph could just be deleted in its entirety. Letter, and then Dick, just kind of clarifying, Ben explained this pretty well, but the internet crimes against children isn't, like you said, it's targeted at predators. It's not really what children are doing online. It's going after people that are like uploading child pornography or proactively like trying to target kids online, which we've seen quite a big uptick in.
Katie?
Just from last night's meeting, I know that they're going to discuss the levy on the July 15th meeting. So I'd still like to weigh in, and I agree with striking that one whereas with the fire station.
Lori?
Just a comment for the group, and we had kind of talked about it in the executive committee, but would we want to consider separating the police and fire? Somehow I feel like the police or the fire needs seem greater than the police needs necessarily, and maybe not as supported by the community, perhaps. Throwing that out if people would want to maybe do that.
Would the levy be separated by those two?
That's an option that they could potentially consider.
Okay.
We could do that, two separate levies.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that came up in their discussion, but I think as it's being presented by staff, it's combined.
Yeah,
It could be separated. So if we want to take that stance, we absolutely could. It'd probably require another whereas or therefore clause, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We grab that. So.
And I agree with Dylan too. Sorry, Chair. I think timing is not super relevant, other than we should move on this, and I just support the bulk of this.
And
Yeah, I have a question, and that is, do you all think that our recommendation to put this measure on the ballot would be viewed by the public as supporting the levy?
So my understanding is that since staff have to take a backseat once it's on the levy, elected officials can still take a stance for or against. So we would fall within that realm where we could advocate for its passage if we so chose. We can get further clarification from legal if that's something that you would like. I don't have I was a little bit worried about the timeline if they were going to put it on November, but if they're considering moving it a few more months down the line, that could give us some time to further reflect on this. So, but I still think that they're going to make their decision in early July.
You know, I mean, maybe others remember this differently, but when the school levy was out, you know, I thought we were told that we also, as elected officials, couldn't publicly advocate for that as an HCC.
Yeah, as HCC.
As HCC, as individuals, of course, we still have our freedom of speech, but I would like clarification on that because so that makes me think, going back to Anne, that we should table this, get some answers to a couple of questions, and then maybe bring this up again in July or something.
Yeah.
And I may be wrong, but that's what I remember from the public school levy.
Okay. So in terms of the therefore clause, it doesn't necessarily state that we would be taking a stance for or against it. It's asking for them to move forward with it. And if we wanted to have that discussion about whether to take one stance or another, that it still happens. There further discussion? There's no more discussion. We'll move into a vote.
Are we voting on this recommendation?
If there's no further motion or discussions, we'd be voting up or down.
I'm going to be voting against it. I asked some questions myself. How supportive has the city been to HCC and our recommendations in the past? 2, how encouraging of and responsive to the public input has the city shown? And then my question about, would this be interpreted as us supporting the levy? So I'm going to be voting against it.
So I would move maybe we postpone voting on this officially as a document until we get some more answers as far as can we, or will this look like too much support? To your point, Diana, about that we couldn't or not.
Is there a motion on the table to vote?
That seems to be a motion to table.
Motion to table until we have more information, but
I second that.
Right. There's a motion on the table. I will say till next month's meeting.
Yeah.
All right. There's a motion on the table there's a motion to table this recommendation to next month's meeting by Fitzgerald, seconded by Sloan. Is there any discussion on the motion to table?
For some of those outstanding questions, do we think we can get answers by that time?
I can reach out.
Okay.
I'll get clarification from the group if this passes on what you would want me to exactly ask, but that can be done.
Do you think there's a sense of urgency past for our meeting next month?
When I thought it was on a timeline to hit the November ballot, I would say yes. But now that it's possibly going to be delayed, I don't know what the commission's going to do. They could still move forward with the November ballot. But like I said before, I think they're still going to take a stance on it before our next meeting. So they're probably going to make the decision before our next meeting.
They need to really think through, because there's very little support out there for it. I've gotten lots and lots of calls.
All right, further discussion on the motion to table. All right, we'll move into a roll call vote. Okay.
All right. Laura.
Aye.
We're voting on whether or not to table it.
Yes.
Whether or not to
Yes.
table.
Yes, is
Whether or
table,
not to-
no is not table.
Yes, right. Okay.
Yes, says
I
table.
also
No
vote
says no.
yes to table. Joe.
No.
Right, no, don't table. Nancy.
Yes to table.
Anne.
Yes to table.
Jacob, online.
Yes.
Someone recording these.
I have 5 so far.
Oh, okay,
Hang on.
sorry, I'm reading and I'm not reading. All right, Ben.
No.
Katie.
Yes, get those questions answered.
Dylan.
No.
Kent.
Yes.
And Dick.
Yes.
8.
One more online, Diana.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Ryan.
That's okay.
I
I'll
can't-
vote. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see you. I forgot. Sorry.
That's okay. I would vote yes to table.
9.
Nine yes, and that was
It's table.
yeah.
All right.
Okay.
The motion passes to table 9-4.
Yeah, nine in favor of table.
All right. So just for clarification, the only question I have right now is for legal to clarify if a recommendation like this would be pushing a stance for the HCC, and if the HCC can actually take a stance on the levy as a body. Is that what you want me to ask?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that I'm missing here? Okay.
Well, I guess, okay. Are there 2 questions there? One, can we act to put it on the ballot? And then is there a second question? Can we act in support of it?
As a body, yes.
Are there 2
Can we
questions?
support?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll push that question forward. Okay, with that, we are very close to 7:30, so I want to really push this into overdrive. Officer reports. So the only thing that I have is if you have any communications that you would like to get passed on to the city manager or staff, for the time being, please send those to me. I'll get it through the appropriate avenues to make sure that the answer or the question is addressed. Any questions for me?
What, I'm sorry. So any questions we have go to you and then you send them to the city manager?
Yeah, that was the process that we were requested. So we'll work
Until
on
they
that.
tell us about the mailbox, is that what you're saying?
All right, seeing no other questions, we will move into the vice chair's report.
The only report I have, I think, is that we're having a street party, a neighborhood party on Tuesday. You all got the invitation. You all stop by if you want to. And if you all have a party, I'd be glad to come and help with yours. And I'm not asking you to help on this, just y'all come.
Any questions for vice chair?
Do you need any? I mean, do you use help?
I think, thank you. And I think we're good, right? This is gonna be very simple.
Okay, treasurer.
We talked about what our budget is. I am going to reach out to the clerk's office and ask about what they plan for our budget for this coming year, and if we can carry over money. I also wanted to mention that the budget committee as a group, with all of your help on the recommendation, our budget recommendations we went as a group. So it was Dick and I and Katie and Ben and Anne, and then Diane also assisted on budget committee. It wasn't at the presentation, but we presented our topics, and the commissioners were really receptive, had a lot of questions. Everyone agreed they wanted that information sooner because they were going to vote on the preliminary budget that day anyway. So the sooner we can get involved, the better. So we're working on that process.
Just really quickly, the two things that I'm still not clear on is our recommendation on the water, charging more for the people who use more, and the same thing for the trash. Can you try to get an answer from us as when they're going to be making those decisions?
So the water rates, and what was the other
The
one?
water rates and the trash. Our recommendation was, if you use a lot more water, bump that one up to be more expensive. Same thing.
Oh, the dumping
on
of
the trash and the dump.
dump.
The people who use more, it's just tiny percentage, make them pay more.
I think it's like 3% of the permit holders go over the 1,000.
But neither of these are dealt with in the regular budget process, so I think it would be nice for us to be able to track when the city is making those decisions and kind of lean on them. Hey, remember us? We made a recommendation.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions for the treasurer? Yeah. Caught up. Okay. Any general questions for officers before we move on?
I have a.
Oh, I'm sorry, Secretary.
Who would like to, we need to have some sign up openings, July 6th commission meeting, July 20th, July 29th. Katie, you're signed up for the 15th of July.
July 6th, is that admin?
That's the city commission.
Is it?
They agree.
Oh, do you have the city?
Okay.
I'm planning to go.
You want to go? You want to go? Okay. And thank you for covering one, and Ben, covering ones in meetings in July or June. Anyone available for July 20th?
Okay, I'll sign it.
Thank you.
What was the other date, Diana?
The next date is July 29th.
Is that admin?
Oh, that is an admin. Wednesday, July 29th, 5 p.m. City admin.
I can do that one.
Okay. Great, thank you. The next one is August 3rd, City Commission meeting. I could do. All right, well, August 17th, City Commission meeting. Dylan, you're signed up for the 12th, the admin meeting. Okay. August 17th, 6 p.m. City Commission meeting.
I'll do that.
All right, just one more and then we're all the way through August. August 26th, City admin meeting, 5 p.m.
Yeah,
I could do that one.
Oh, somebody else?
You got some?
Brian can also do it?
Oh, okay, fine, that's fine.
Okay. We spread out a little bit more. Thank you. All right, thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks everyone. If you have any questions about what to say during your report, just reach out. We don't always have a ton of things to say, so yeah, just reach out if you have any questions on that. All right, moving on. As you all know, we have a new coordinator. His email was CC'd on the last communication I sent to all of you. So if you have any coordinator related questions, go ahead and reach out. Just be sure to CC those two HCC emails, and then if you could CC me as well, so I know what's being asked, I would appreciate it.
And can I interrupt you real quick? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Do we have anything else that we'll be voting on? Because I think I do have to hop off here.
No, that'll conclude our action items.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, outreach.
Boy, I think we covered it during the budget discussions. Our next meeting will be Monday, July 6th at noon in the library. I believe. Yep. If anyone wants to come.
Any questions for outreach? Okay. Is there any objection to skipping commission reports and just doing an email report?
Yeah.
Move on. Same.
Question for
Yeah,
the email report. I don't have, the total HCC group. Should I just I sent it to you.
I did get yours. I'll forward it.
Oh.
Yes, thanks, Dave. All right, same with city board meeting attendees reports. Is there any objection to sending those via email? Okay. We'll move into member communications. Any general member communications?
I have one. District one, I mentioned, I think in May or April, we have a feral cat issue in, my neighborhood. And I met with my neighbors, we, had a meeting with the city manager and the chief of police, and, that was back in April or May, and then we had a follow-up meeting last week. With the city manager wasn't able to make it, but the, Chief Petty and Lieutenant Shanks attended, and we're getting a lot of good assistance from the city, and they're being really responsive, and we're very appreciative.
That's right.
But
Any
we still
other,
have lots of cats.
I was gonna ask, is it doing good?
any
I
other
have a
members
bunch of
communications?
mice up in my neighborhood if you want to move the cats.
We would, so one thing, I'll just really briefly,
I derailed us.
I think they're allowing us, I think they're
To
gonna allow
relocate
some of my neighbors to actually trap them and relocate, which has been not, I don't know if it's been illegal, but it's been not allowed previously, so. But
Relocate the cats.
relocate,
Are they gonna,
like barn
are
cat.
they gonna neuter them first?
Well, that's the
Yeah,
idea.
if they don't know.
Seriously, I don't want them in my neighborhood unless they've been neutered.
Well, I think you're looking at barn cats, people who need
Right.
barn cats.
Out in the valley somewhere.
All right, any more member communication? Okay, topics for next meeting.
We talked at one point of inviting the League of Women Voters. They weren't
That's a good
available
idea.
for this meeting, but maybe we could invite them for July or August.
And didn't,
Who's that?
The League of Women Voters.
and didn't,
Oh,
I think AARP
that'd be
wanted
interesting,
to
yeah.
come at one time and that didn't, isn't that right?
Okay, we'll talk about that as the executive committee. Okay. Any other topics for next meeting or future meetings? Okay, is there any public comment? Just want to notate for the record, there's still no public online or in the room. Is there anything for the good of the order before we adjourn?
No.
All right, seeing none, this meeting's adjourned.
So,
Thank you, everyone.
does anyone have a cornhole? Game. I'm looking for one. All right,
Which?
cornhole, the beanbag toss.
I just had one and gave it away. Sorry.